Episode 1.
Episode 1.
What's it called again?
Is junk food affecting your child's behavior?
Is junk food affecting your child's behavior? So, what does that mean?
It's a good question. I actually do feel like we should start by defining like what is junk food, because I kind of feel like it's such a broad statement, and what one person considers junk food, another person might be like, no, that's fine.
Well, it's true. What some people consider junk food, other people consider treasures. And there are these people in America that literally live their lives
Okay.
collecting food from trash cans. And they'll make gourmet, and they make, there are people that have their social media accounts for it. They
Really?
literally, yeah, they're skip diving, and then they'll come up, they'll come up with their gourmet meals. I think so. So, that for them, what we would literally call junk food for them is their treasure food.
Okay, well, I don't think that's the term we're using when we're referring to junk. I think when we're referring to junk food,
What would be
my
the definition of junk food?
that's a good thing. And I think my definition that I would like to stamp on that, which you can then add to, please, will be food that has been refined and processed, food that has more chemicals in it than natural produce, and probably, honestly speaking, most pre-made, pre-packaged foods, like if it's coming in plastic container, or like a little plastic bag, crisps, but not all crisps.
So that's a very, wide spectrum. And I think, just to further elaborate, highlight to what is some is junk and to what others is normal. I think a reality of a definition of junk food for the context of people trying to learn would be food that has already been pre-prepared.
Yeah, like processed.
Yeah. So, and that would be a very good indicative term for junk food as to what we would call junk food. And then maybe to then highlight the context of the rest of this talk, it would be more understanding food that has been pre-prepared.
Yeah.
In that, for example, bread. Bread has been pre-prepared. I had a good one with a client yesterday.
People are going to
And
watch this and go, bread isn't junk food.
my client says that he loves bread, and I said to him, okay, yeah, but not all bread's the same. And I said to him, the best bread for you in your culture would be to get the mosque breads. And he went, yeah, the foot bread. He said, why those ones? And I said, well, because when you buy them, if you don't eat them within 1 hour, you can cut someone's head off with it or use it as a baton, because it has become so hard. It's literally like a frisbee, or you can literally smack someone with it, because that is the nature of flat bread.
Yeah,
So when we're going to the supermarkets and you're buying these nice big flatbreads that 1 week later they're still like floppy and you can make a nice burrito, that's not natural.
Yeah.
That is junk food,
Yeah.
because that is not natural and it has been processed to keep it in that sort of refined state for a longer period of time than what is normal. You'll go to the mosque and you'll get a freshly made bread. If you don't eat it within 1 or 2 hours, it's a game over. It's useless. It's cracker. You can throw it at someone and that's it. It's your next weapon.
Yeah.
So, he understood the analogy and he understood why it's important to pick quality from bread. But, it's a good definition for junk food would be to sort of think, have I had to do anything to make it into its final state? AKA,
I mean, like,
bread is in
maybe.
its final state. You can eat it as it is. You can't eat cake mixture, bread mixture. You got to do stuff to it. So maybe it's not as bad. Maybe. I don't know. That's another conversation.
But I mean, someone could then argue that they had to put a pizza in an oven, so
Yeah, it's a processed oven. It's a processed pizza. You haven't had to make the pizza. You haven't had to make the dough. You haven't had to make the sauce. You haven't had to put the toppings on top.
Individual item.
Yeah, yeah. It's a pizza. It's ready to go. You can eat it frozen if you wanted to.
So I guess then what's the issue with junk food? Like, what's wrong with junk food? Processed and pre-prepared food. What's wrong with it?
It's more kind of, I guess, the realities is it's trying to understand optimization. If you want to optimize your life, your family, your children, understanding cause and effect is then really important.
Yep.
Because you cannot achieve optimization while eating trash. Case of athletes, people that want to achieve peak athleticism cannot eat trash. They have to eat really good food. And yes, there are athletes that eat trash food. But imagine what they could do
Yeah,
if they didn't. I remember my professional football guy, he was, one of the world's top number sevens. And speaking of him, his nutrition was on point, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, man, you need to go work for Man City. My friends at Man City, they're going to McDonald's, they're going to KFC, they're eating all this junk. It's not even good, but you go, my gosh, imagine that's what they were doing, eating trash. What could they have done if they were eating better? This guy had achieved the peak performance he could achieve through everything. But there are people, like Wayne Rooney, for example, who was living off Stella and all sorts, and he was so good, but he could have been so much better. And it's the same thing when you think for kids, oh, my kids are good, but they could be better.
Yeah.
There's always more that can be achieved in terms of optimization and health to then make everything better.
Yeah. It leads me to think about like the instant memory I have is we had a child who used to come to our therapy center, and I mean, when he came, it was very clear that he had a candida overgrowth, because even like his nails, everything, it was very, very clear. And we worked with the family to cut out sugar and a lot of processed and refined foods, and wasn't 100% diet, it was an improvement, but the changes in his behavior, like he went from literally unable to concentrate, unable to focus, couldn't sit still, like constantly just bouncing and moving and running and screaming and hyper. And just from those changes, it made like the changes in his diet, his behavior, he was actually finally able to start learning, like he learned to communicate, he learned to sit, and oh man, it was huge, wasn't it?
It was huge. And it's a very important thing that people don't realize, how food is a cause and effect.
Yeah.
From an adult's health right down to our children's development. There is a clear cause and effect to the types of food that people are eating in order to achieve optimum health and performance. Whether it's learning, whether it's professional development, whether it's getting a lot of work done in a short period of time. And understanding that connection to food is actually very important for families to know and for parents to know, especially when it comes to them deciding what they're going to allow their children to eat. What are they going to put their foot down on and say, no, that's just not acceptable? And then also understanding why, because sometimes it can be quite hard to be that weird parent that doesn't allow your children to have sprinkles and all sorts of food colorings and trash. But if you know why you're doing it and you then see the result as a benefit, you go, well, it's actually better. Like
your client that got mum shamed at a nursery because she wouldn't let her kid have sprinkles because it was affecting his behavior and his learning.
Well, the story I always remember when it comes to food, and it's my most important thing that I always cling on to, is with Ellie. And when we used to go to the restaurant that had children, hippie, organic, natural macaroni cheese, it wasn't a very happy day for us those nights, shall we say. And she'd have that and then she wouldn't sleep. She'd be writhing. And it was the gluten-free mac and cheese. And she definitely wasn't happy about it. Like, she was writhing, her stomach was hurting. And you're like, why? What was it? Then we worked out the cause and effect. Then when we then went and then had a meal that was a burger with some chips cooked in duck fat, she was now very happy. It was a happy sleep for her.
Because gluten-free pasta is like highly processed and it's got a lot of additives in it to help
balance it out. And you go, that's a cause and effect. So she loved the mac and cheese. She enjoyed it. Granted, she did enjoy the burger too. But it's a good example of a cause. Actually, we're just not going to pick that junk. Why? Because it affected her sleep, which meant we didn't get to sleep as fast. But when she doesn't sleep well, it knocks off the next day, which makes her a bit more crabby, made it harder to get her to do development and learning because she's crabby. And it's a cause and effect. So you have to sort of understand in life, cause, effect, and then put a foot down and just stand for it and understand why you're doing it. What was it we're going to be talking about?
Junk food. So what I guess then the fundamental question is, like, what are the main the main effects that we see, I guess not even just in children, because it affects adults too, but let's focus primarily on children. Like, what are the main effects that we see from them having junk food in their lives?
So the biggest things that you're going to be seeing for kids that are being affected by junk food is short attention spans, poor memory, poor recall, inability to sit still, inability to sleep peacefully, inability to fall asleep, inability to stay asleep, inability to sleep for long periods of time. basically everything.
No.
Poor bowel movements,
Yeah,
whether it be constipation, diarrhea, or an odor that makes you question anything holy is left in this world. These are all examples of things that are triggered by poor nutritional choices or junk food. Stomach distension. Also, I can't think the word now, when bodies are being grown in a deformed manner, whether it's poor head shape, whether it's a small body, whether it's a big bloated belly, whether it's a small head compared to the rest of the body.
we've seen a lot of this.
These deformities in growth are not genetic.
Yeah.
They are deformities. That is not how we're meant to go. Poor teeth palate. That's a big one. Really, like, as in if you got mashed up wonky teeth, there are direct correlations and studies that show nutritional status being directly linked to teeth health.
Yeah.
So these are all signs that people can sort of allude to being as a result of nutritional choices.
So I guess let's just take a few of the top things. Sugar.
Sugar.
So we give sugar to our daughter. I am not against sugar, but I am against types of sugar. And so I think the type of sugar that you give is very important. Again, not processed, not refined. So we only give sugar that's raw, like muscovado, jaggery. We use maple sugar,
Coconut sugar.
But having like refined white sugar, even brown sugar as well, is just the same thing.
Yeah.
Demerara sugar, even cane sugar, it sounds good, but it's refined and processed.
So what's the problem with refining it and processing it? What happens?
It strips away all the minerals and the natural elements that are in there that are good for our body.
It's the same argument as salt, that why white table salt is so bad for you, because a lot of the minerals are stripped from the salt that are actually needed to balance out the response of the sodium.
Yeah. So what would be like the common responses parents could look out for to see if their kids are being affected by sugar? Because it sneaks into everything, like even baby food, they put sugar in, formula. Like when we were first pregnant, we went to this supermarket. Yeah, maltodextrin. That's the type of sugar.
It's just sugar.
It's in everything, and it's just like you wouldn't even know because it doesn't say sugar.
Maltodextrin is a very common one that gets snuck into drinks as a way of hiding sugar. It's basically sugar.
So what are the common sort of behavioral things, or not even just behavioral, but like physiological things? Because obviously if your body's in pain or discomfort, it will also affect your behavior. But what are the common things that parents can look for?
With sugar, the biggest one is hyperactivity. Sugar really is the biggest one that is hyperactivity. If kids are having too much white sugar, there will be extreme hyperactivity. Now, there's nothing wrong with a kid getting the zoomies once in a while. But when it's like they're on Beavis and Butthead, I am Cornholio, and they're running around non-stop all day long with extremely high levels of terrorism, that's a very good sign that they've got too much sugar. Because sugar can act as a stimulant for the brain and muscles, because the body then has to utilize it.
Yeah.
So it will then release insulin as a way of driving it into the muscles and brain, and it creates a hyper-enhanced state, which is useful when you're trying to work and trying to get through a fast deadline. It's useful when you're about to go do a UFC fight. It's useful when you're about to go play a professional football game. It's not so useful when you're a child trying to sit down and learn.
Yeah. Or even like just play and attend to like a play with a peer or, whatever. Like, but of course, the first sort of 5 to 6 years of a child's development are so crucial. So if they're exposed to, sugars in that stage that are going to affect their ability to attend, it's going to directly correlate to their ability to then learn. Because if you can't focus, you can't learn.
Yeah, it's a thing people forget, that by the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, definitely by 10, the human brain is formed. Trying to create new synapses between left and right is very hard. To develop parts of the brain that have not been developed by the ages of 5 and 6, it's very hard, next to impossible. So understanding that your dietary choices in those early stages of childhood are critical to getting it right, because if you don't do it then, there's no going back. It's not like how I got fat a couple of years ago. It's okay, I can go back in time and undo that fatness. I just don't want to. But in the context of a child's brain development, once the damage is done, the damage is done. There's no going back. There's no like Control Alt Delete. It's messy, and as the kids get older, it gets harder and harder to create a healthy brain balance. And one of the biggest things that come out of a healthy brain balance is things like emotional regulation. If kids have not developed certain parts of the brain associated with boredom, sitting still and being bored, the human brain cannot have emotional logic. It cannot have an emotional balance because those parts of the brain are correlated, they're linked.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, the development that comes is children sitting still.
Course. And then you also, it's not just about, you know, the actual learning aspect of development in terms of like if we're thinking academia learning, but it's also going to be largely about even emotional regulation. Like if your child's high on sugar and they're hyperactive, they're not going to be able to regulate their own emotions and learn that skill, which again is such an essential skill that kids have to learn at a young age. Of course, their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, but it's developing. And as something is developing is when it is learning, you're learning, it's in the phase of learning, and so you have to teach those skills early on. But if the kid's not able to focus, the kid's not able to attend, they're never going to be able to regulate their emotions either.
So then you have big things with sugar that can then sneak in to then that will affect things like attention, hyperactivities. Where are these hidden sugars? Fruit juices.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. So many kids have fruit juices and parents have good intentions, but they don't know where the secrets are. In the sugar gets added, or if not sugar's added, is from concentrate.
Concentrate is just
and concentrate is just a boiled down sugar. It's basically a boiled sweet. Literally, it's just a boiled down sugar, which they then add to then increase the carbohydrate intake and to make it tastier. There's nothing wrong with fruit juice if it's fresh and cold pressed. Very good for you. But the reality is most juices are not fresh and they're not cold pressed. They're made from concentrate, and that is very high in sugars. Or they have sugars added because they use nasty fruit, the trash fruit they couldn't sell to eat. They turn it into a juice and they'll add sugar and flavorings to make it good.
It's true.
Your Ribenas, your Capri Suns. So you have good intentions thinking it's a fruit juice, but when you actually look into the details, it's full of trash. And that's one big one that sneaks into people that are trying to be healthy. Or people also buy things like fruit biscuits, thinking they're also a good one. But again, when you go through the ingredients, they're the same things. They've got sugars added, colorings, additives, and all of these things are directly correlated and scientifically linked to prove issues with ADHD and hyperactivity are linked to sugar intake.
So when a parent is looking at a nutrition label of anything, because I mean, if we're buying prepackaged food, we should definitely be checking what are the main ways that companies will hide sugar? Like what are the other names they might use? We've already said like
from concentrate, juices from concentrate, and maltodextrin, that's another one that gets easily snuck in there. Some form of dextrin is always going to be a sugar.
Okay, and what about things like fructose?
Fructose as well. So again, fructose and glucose, just two different types of sugars, but they're still both sugars. They're just different chains and designs. Same as like maltodextrin and cyclic dextrin. They're still sugars, just different designs. And that's just understanding those are the different names that sugar can get snuck into in the different ways. So when you're getting a juice concentrate, you're getting pure fructose.
Yeah.
So you consider, let's just say, one apple maybe will have 8 to 10 grams of fructose.
Yeah.
Whereas 10 grams of apple concentrate is just 10 grams of fructose.
Yeah.
It's
so then
totally
if you're given
different.
100 ml of apple juice, then the kid's having 100 grams of...
Not quite, because you then have to then depend on how much water they then add in to bolster it back up and fix the ratio.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But you consider, let's just say orange juice, you know, you'll get 2 to 3, say 3 kilos of oranges will make you 1 liter of cold pressed orange juice.
Yeah.
And then within that fresh cold pressed orange juice, maybe you'll have in 1 liter approximately 60-ish grams of carbohydrates, depending on the number of oranges you use, 60 to 70 grams. But if you then got 1 liter of orange juice from concentrate, it would probably be up to 3 or 4 times more
That's a lot.
sugar per amount, because they've intensified the flavor to make it taste nicer, so your kids want it or you want it over the stuff which is fresh, because it doesn't taste as nice, doesn't taste as strong, doesn't taste as sweet, because you forget what natural tastes like. And these are the ways that it sneaks in fruit juice. It also sneaks in the same way in cereals, that you'll get a healthy cereal but sugar's added.
From concentrate, apple juice
or juice from concentrate. And these are ways that they get snuck in. And that's if someone is trying to be healthy. Your average person buying Lucky Charms or shredded cinnamon crunch, you're just putting in a chemical bomb that is fundamentally going to be like giving your child Red Bull.
Yeah.
Which most people know not to, although nowadays kids aren't being given Red Bull. So it's also nonsense.
So let's take a pause and let's say just drop a comment and tell us if you've ever seen any correlations between foods that your child's had and then behaviors that they've had. So maybe sugars, maybe additives, maybe preservatives. Go ahead and just drop a comment.
Yeah, let us know. And the fundamental is, some people go, oh, well, it's just myth, it's not real about sugar. But no, the truth is there is strong evidence that directly links to hyperactivity in sugar. And that fundamentally is it. When sugar goes up, insulin spikes, dopamine gets released, all of these, it's time to go, go, go. Hormones happen, which is then going to cause a direct correlation to behavior. So one thing, if you find that your kid has ADHD-like issues and hyperactivity issues and attention issues, try removing sugar from their diet and see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's just touch base as well on sort of like colorings, because that's a huge thing. And I know in some parts of the world, like I think in England they're a lot more strict with them now, but I know in America they still put like red 40 as a huge, I mean, even in the mouthwash, the Listerine mouthwash, we found it snuck in like red 40. And it's in so many things that not even just food, and that's directly linked to ADHD as well. But I mean, what are the other types of colorings that we should be aware of, and why? Like, what does that do to our body?
So again, it's understanding just some simple common sense.
Yeah.
It stains stuff.
Stains stuff. I mean, obviously.
You get red food coloring on something, it stains it. There's no going back. It's that white t-shirt is damaged for good.
Yeah.
And you understand that everything has a cause and effect. Food coloring, which changes the color of your water or your food, is then going to have an effect. It's a chemical. It's not a natural dye. It's not like you've got the extract from tomatoes to stain your t-shirts white. It's not. It's a chemically made compound that can have a cause and effect. Like a great example is methylene blue. It's a blue dye. However, it was then found to cure malaria in high doses in the late 1800s. But no one wanted to take it because through injectable methylene blue to cure malaria, your eyes go blue as a side product. So it was then discontinued.
I mean, blue eyes or malaria, take your pick.
Yeah, take it. People picked malaria back then. It was strange. But, not all chemical compounds are used for good. Methylene blue has a lot of good things, and it's also a blue dye.
Yeah.
However, things like red 40, yellow 5, sodium benzoate, those all have studies that prove negative side effects associated with neurological behaviors.
Yeah.
That they will decrease attention, increase ADHD, increase hyperactivity by giving those colorings. And it's then understanding how chemistry works. That chemistry works in certain scenarios. You get your test tube, you put your chemicals in, you heat it up, and when the right temperature hits, it suddenly changes color.
Yeah.
In order for the body to work optimally, certain things need to be in place. So when you put something not natural into that environment, certain reactions cannot happen in the correct way, shape, or form, which will then have a cause and effect, either for good or for bad. Malaria cell can't grow, brain can't function correctly.
Yeah.
And that's then understanding it. It's understanding there are certain things that have been created by man in order to maximize and profit on food, because food does not look the same anymore. One of my clients who owns a restaurant, he had no choice but to start using colorants in his food because the quality of the produce that is now available does not match what people expect.
Yeah.
Therefore, he had to use colorings and flavor additives to enhance the flavor of his food in order to stay in business, because you cannot get good quality enough ingredients for the price people want to pay in a restaurant.
That's another rabbit trail.
But that's another rabbit trail. But it's the realities of understanding what these chemicals are being used for, to enhance garbage ingredients, to enhance garbage produce, to make something taste hyper tasty, to then engage your brain in an addiction response, which then has other causes and effects.
Yeah.
You get a bag of salt and vinegar crisps, you can't replicate that level of salt and vinegar no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, it's true.
Because it's impossible. It's a chemical flavoring designed to addict your brain. There's actually a really good video out there, you can Google it, of someone who works in flavorings, and he's describing how they use crisps as an additive. The way they test flavorings is by using them on rats' brains to see if they get addicted.
That's disgusting.
But it's true. That's how they test flavorings. They get mice and rats that have similar physiology to humans and test if they get addicted to it. If they get addicted to it, it will go into a bag of crisps. And that's why when you open a bag of crisps and you go, oh, the whole thing's gone. Especially when it's a,
those flavorings in there.
they put flavorings in there, and the flavorings create an addiction response in the brain. So when you're then putting this stuff in kids, you think about it like a crack addict. You've had this bag of tasty like salt and vinegar or barbecue, whatever flavored crisps. You're like, whoa, that was good. And then the next thing you know, you're like itching for something. So you're then off trying to find the same response in your brain.
It's a really interesting thought, because if as adults you open a bag of, like you said, you get like the big bag of crisps, and as adults, or like Pringles, that's a good example.
Pringles, that's a good
and once you pop, you can't stop,
Stop.
right? And as an adult, where we have fully functional reasoning and logical brains, we cannot get ourselves to stop because of the addiction associated with those foods that they're purposefully causing. How on earth do we expect our children to even be able to comprehend and understand a rational decision of, I'm full, I've had enough, that's enough food, when it's purposefully like switching off that part of their brain that isn't even developed yet? Like, that's crazy.
And it also hyper engages the brain into reality. And that also is what triggers the hyperactive responses, because the brain is now hyper focused, it's now hyper attenuated, and it's looking for similar fixes in the environment around. It's kind of like when people get addicted to Instagram, and why the average human attention span is at 10 seconds, because they used to every 10 seconds, new reel, new reel, new reel. And they then therefore don't have the attention span required to sit still for a 30-minute podcast. Hopefully you're still here. But then that's then the fundamental issues that are coming into play with people, is there's just an absolute lack of ability to focus. And one of the big things that comes from that is because of the food they're putting in, how it's affecting their brain, because it affects the chemical composition of the environment of the brain, which means things cannot operate in the normal way it's meant to.
Yeah. And so again, on nutrition labels, obviously just look out for colorings, but sometimes they list them as E numbers as well. So it's, you know, you have to be extra vigilant and extra careful. Do your research.
And sometimes instead of using short names, they'll also use the chemical composition names as well.
They do use the full name.
So different countries have different regulations as to labeling, and even in some countries they don't have to put them on the label. So again, it's so messy, especially somewhere like the Middle East where there's so much foreign produce coming in. Not all countries have the same labeling regulations.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And that's also something to take into account.
So I guess,
you know, like for example, I used to have one client, and they worked at the time for Ben & Jerry's, and she was part of the team that made the Ben & Jerry's 50/50. And she goes, Eloy, I'm leaving the UAE now. I've been promoted. I'm like, oh, congratulations. What are you going on to? Like, you know, you've done Ben & Jerry's. What's next? What's better than that? And she went, meat. I went, do you mean meat? She goes, meat, you know, meat. I went, yep, I don't get it. Steak's just steak. She goes, no. I went, it is. I buy a steak and it says steak. And she went, and she said, no, because steak, once it gets killed, it goes brown and manky and all this stuff. We have to put stuff on especially the cheaper cuts, to stop the coloring, to stop it discoloring, to stop it smelling, to enhance the flavors. I would have to put it on. I went,
you don't have to label it. Yeah.
Are you serious? And she went, yeah. And I said, that explains it. Back in the time when I was very poor in Dubai and I had no money to live off, once a week I'd treat myself to these cheap 19 dirham burgers, and always the next day I thought I was bleeding out of my butt.
That's too much.
No, I thought I was. And I said to her, is it because, she went, yeah, because there would have been colorings and stuff, and that was just you pooping out the colorings. So I thought, I only did it like for 1 month because I needed a red meat fix, and I thought I was hemorrhaging. I thought I was, no, honestly.
I literally can't believe you've just shared that. That's way too much information.
But it was just because of bad quality burger.
Oh dear.
I literally had 19 dirhams a day to live on that. It was a rough month. But it was the truth of it. It just said burger, it said beef, and it didn't tell me there was a lunch by the trash, and it's probably cardboard too. So it's understandable.
Was there even beef in there?
Was there even beef in there? It's like going doner meat. They can't even call it doner meat anymore in the UK. It's just called doner because it doesn't have enough constitutions of meat.
So I guess to summarize as well, our personal choice and how we choose to live, we make everything from scratch. I think like the only thing with the exceptions to that is occasionally we'll buy
ice cream.
Ice cream. I don't read the ingredients.
Yeo Valley organic vanilla ice cream. That's as far as we go.
Yeah.
Unless it's a really good sale, then we'll
Wow.
do this. It's once in a blue moon.
But no, like in all seriousness, I think the only things that we really buy that's processed is we buy cereal, but we buy again they're organic and they only have they've been
Ancient grains.
sweetened with honey, I
Yeah.
believe, or I think that's it.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And the second thing is crisps, but
Yeah.
we buy ones
Organic
that are
salted.
pure organic potatoes fried in organic olive oil
Or sunflower oil.
or sunflower oil.
Olive oil ones are very hard to find.
They are in the UAE, and that's kind of it. And again, they're a rare treat
Yeah.
that we
And it's salted, so I found for me crisps is my weakness. If it's a flavored crisp, game over. The whole bag and then a second bag probably going to go. But a salted one, I can stop like a quarter.
Yeah.
I'm done. I can still finish a whole bag of salted. It's just it's less likely to happen. But like a salt and vinegar, whole bag's gone. Barbecue sauce, yeah, forget it.
So we make conscious decisions, and of course it takes more time. Like I wake up early and I cook in the mornings because that way we get fresh meals every day and we get, you know, non-processed food. It's everything's made from scratch. We make our bread, we make our sauces. What else do we make? We make our
Yogurt.
we don't make our own cheese. I would love to say we make our own cheese, but like
It's dry. There's only some
that would be
people make.
drama. Cakes, pastries, like
But even yogurts, that's a good one. Those yogurt sachets, we make our own yogurt sachets because we make our own jam.
yeah, we make our own
Make our own
jam.
jam, and then you can then just do that in your own made yogurt. Whereas when you go buy the pre-made yogurts from the
The kids ones,
supermarkets, they're full of junk.
Yeah.
Full of junk.
Yeah, so again, like everything we sauces, again, like if we're having a sauce for a salad bowl or something, we make our own sauces. So everything we try to make from scratch
Yeah.
with the time capacity that we have, of course. There are exceptions here and there, like we said, that we'll buy some crisps here and there. But all of that to say, like you can make your own choices to do that too. Of course, there's compromises you have to make, like maybe getting up 30 minutes to an hour earlier so that you can cook that food. And then checking the labels is just a secondary thing, and just knowing where to pick your battles and where to start, because it can feel very overwhelming. Like when we first went down this rabbit hole, it was so overwhelming, everything, and it's a very slow process to get to that clean living.
And I think this the biggest recommendation to remember is cause and effect.
Yeah.
It's when you start making those changes, you will see an effect on your child. That effect on your child will cause you to behave differently and have a different quality of life. In that suddenly they will be able to sit still quietly in self-play. They will start becoming more creative in their imaginative play. They will start sleeping through the night. They will start sleeping in. They'll start enjoying naps. They will be able to calmly regulate themselves, which means you're not constantly trying to find ways to entertain them and distract them.
Yeah.
They can now learn how to self-regulate. They're not going to be hormonal mood swings. One day they're a moaning Myrtle and one day they're a hyperactive Tigger. You know whether you're coming or going. And because of that, you can have a balanced life to then grow as a family.
Yeah. And it's also the same, not just for your kids, but for you as an adult. Like we noticed so many changes in ourselves when we started cleaning up our lives, and you very quickly see, like if you then do delve back in and you have like a day where you're going to have, oh, I'm just going to enjoy a bag of crisps, like you get to a place where you then go, it wasn't worth it, because now you see how bad it makes your body feel, and you just realize like, no, I actually don't want it anymore. It is a detoxification because you have to start almost like weaning your body off all those sugars and chemicals and stuff, but it's so worth it.
It's so worth it. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed that long podcast. Please comment any snacks that you want to know if there are hidden ingredients, and I'll do the research for you. And please like and subscribe to our page in this video.
Yes.
See you next week.